You are listening to the Outside the Boards podcast. I'm Danny O'Leary. For most of my professional career, I have worked in mainstream sports for some of the world's leading sports organizations and properties and blue-chip brands, helping to create award-winning omni-channel marketing campaigns, result-driven sales strategies, and impactful brand-building initiatives. But all that work doesn't compare to the fun, excitement, and challenges I've been fortunate to experience working for the king of all sports, polo. For nearly a decade, I've put my heart and ambition into helping advance the sport of polo. I've made lifelong friendships, met some incredible people, traveled to memorable polo destinations, and heard the craziest stories. My goal is to share these people, places, and stories with you and provide a unique behind-the-scenes perspective of the game that breaks all the common stereotypes, all while discussing key issues affecting the sport today and the constructive sharing of ideas, insights, solutions, and best case studies for the purpose of advancing polo globally. Every week, I will have honest conversations with polo industry leaders, enthusiasts, and awe-inspiring people who make this sport great and fun to be around. I hope through their knowledge and their unique perspectives, they will motivate and inspire you. Together, we will explore ways you can make small tweaks to boost your polo business, whether you are a club, event, team, or player, that will amount to big changes in revenue, participation, attendance, and exposure. Saddle up. Welcome to Outside the Boards with me, Daniel Leary. Hi everyone, Danny O'Leary here. We are 3 weeks away now from Christmas. We now have a COVID-19 vaccine. A few anticipated polo finals this week, including the Copa Camara de Diputados and the Abierto Argentino de Polo Femenino and the Argentine Open between La Delfina and El Erstina. So lots of great polo to close out the Argentine polo season before the migration to Florida's high goal season. My guest on this episode of Outside the Boards is the talented American polo phenom and professional player, Mr. Jared Zenni. The Chicagoland native from Lake Bluff, Illinois, and recent graduate of the University of Miami has become an American polo phenom and rising star in the world of professional polo. Introduced to polo at a young age by his father, Jim Zenni, Jared would soon after realize his talent for the sport and motivation to become a better player. At the age of 14, he would achieve a 1-goal handicap and be invited to participate in the United States Polo Association's Team USPA, a program designed to develop the talent of the higher-rated American players by giving them the mentoring and resources to advance their talent and skills. At 5 goals, Jared would lead his father's daily racing forum team to a 2018 U.S. Open Polo Championship win against the highly favored Valiente team, a win highly regarded as the upset of the season. Jared would earn the Open's Most Valuable Player for his exceptional discipline and skill on defense and securing 2 goals for his team in the final match. Jared would also be the first Team USPA member to garner an Open title. That same year, Jared and his team qualified for the Hurlingham Open in England and the Argentine Open in Palermo. Today, Jared has risen to 6 goals and is currently playing in Argentina with hopes of playing in the Argentine Open, the sport of polo's biggest stage. He will be returning to Florida's for USA's high goal season with Team Daily Racing Form and the Cessna Polo teams. Jared is incredibly passionate about the game and is committed to seeing it grow on the international stage. I invited Jared on this season of Outside the Boards because he's incredibly important to consider the perspective of professional players on how they see the sport and how they want to educate fans. They represent and are, in fact, the product on the field. So I look forward to hosting more professional players in the near future. I'm thrilled to have gotten the opportunity to get to know Jared and even more excited to see him prosper as a professional polo player representing the United States. So let's get started, everyone. Enjoy. Jared, great to have you, buddy.
Oh, good to be on.
It's nice to have a Chicagoan. Can I still call you a Chicagoan?
I'm still Chicagoan, yeah. Still Chicagoan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was worried about that, being that you're at the University of Miami, you're a Hurricane.
Yeah. I've moved away, but those are where my roots are. I go home and visit some friends, and that's always where I'll be from and stuff. So,
Now, where did you grow up in Chicago? You grew up on the Lake Shore, right?
yep, in Lake Bluff. Pretty small town.
You guys still have a home up there, don't you?
We still have a home,
Or no?
yeah. Actually, my sister just got married, and she decided to get married at the house where she grew up. So,
Nice. And you have 2 sisters, is that right?
2 older sisters, yeah.
How old are they?
28 and 30.
Are they in Chicago still, or are they?
No, one lives in Virginia Beach and the other one lives in DC.
Oh, wonderful. Is that where they went to school out there?
No, actually, no. One moved there with her now husband, who's a Marine, and then the other one, she's working in DC.
All right. So Lake Bluff, you still have a home out there. If I remember correctly, that home has a polo field adjacent to it, right? Or right in its backyard.
Yeah, that's got a bunch of hours of polo on it. From me playing stick and balling, playing motorcycle polo, the amount of polo I played on that field is impressive.
Motorcycle polo.
Motorcycle polo, yeah.
All right. I think you kind of invented a new sport there. Yeah, I heard the unicycle polo, the one wheel. I've seen golf cart polo
Yeah.
going on.
Well, that's where
Uh,
it started. It started originally with golf cart polo, and then when I was old enough, I bought a little Honda 70, and then I switched the accelerator over to the left side, and that's where motorcycle polo got invented. I got a few scratches from that, a few stitches here and there, but nothing too bad.
don't ever want to tell you that polo's not an adrenaline sport. That's for sure. I think we got to talk to the motocross people.
Yeah.
We got a new invention here. Good deal. Now that field is still groomed. I'm assuming no one's played polo on it for quite some time, right?
No, no, no. I mean, ever since I kind of moved away or so, I think it's been like 5, 6, 7 years since I've been back there in the summer and played. So no one's really using it. Whenever I go home, I'm like, man, this looks like one of the best fields in the world.
Sidebar conversation, Jared, after this podcast about that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So you said you're 5, 7 years since you've been here in Chicago. So where'd you go to high school?
I went to high school at the Lake Forest High School.
Okay. Did you play any sports there?
I played a few different sports. I played football freshman and sophomore year. And then it started getting at a point where it was just getting kind of picking up too much of my time. So I was like, okay, I can't really play football anymore. And the body type is totally different. I was like, I want to be a professional polo player. So I need to focus on this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dropped out of football and I started playing tennis. So I was on the tennis team and this, I mean, I would always play tennis, but I was never on the tennis team or anything. But so those were the two sports I played in high school. And then I played a bunch of basketball when I was in middle school, but I could never play competitively because of the winter season in Florida. I couldn't, so I kind of had to just give it up.
Okay. So polo has been in your family for a while, beginning with your grandfather, correct? I read in a recent article, your dad picked it up from your grandfather, or
Yeah, I believe so. If I understand correctly, he picked it up from his grandfather. And then my dad, played when he was in his 20s or so before he had family and everything. And then he kind of picked it up again. He found a group of guys that played out kind of in the suburbs in Chicago. And slowly, maturely, he started playing a little more and more. And then I just started following him to the barn,
mm-hmm.
stick and balling a little pony that some guy had, that Jim Toohey had. And then from there, just kept on growing, playing practices, stick and balling, this and that. And then before you knew it, I was playing the 8 goals and the 10 goals out there in Oak Brook. And those were some of my fondest years playing the I think it was Saturday or Sunday game out on the Oak Brook field where they would have a lot of people come.
About what age were you then that you either were on your horse or you've picked up your first mallet?
Probably around the age of 5, 6 or so.
Okay, wow.
On the horse, right? Mallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, probably around the same age.
When would you say that you really started to get into it? Was it something that you were constantly doing every week? When did you kind of show that I want to make a go at this?
I would kind of always do it just because my dad would do it. My dad would take me with him. And I kind of liked it. It never drove me crazy just because being from just a normal, like American family, all my friends, none of them played polo. And then whenever I went to go do an activity, it would be football, basketball, some kind of other sport. And that's kind of what pulled me away from polo a little bit in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be a professional basketball player, something like that, something that didn't have to do with polo. But yeah,
You're a tall guy.
yeah,
You're a tall
nah,
guy.
more
Yeah.
or less, more or less. But yeah, probably around the age of 12 or so, I was like, oh no, this is something that I really think I could be good at, and I want to start taking seriously. And then every year from there, I started progressing more. Like, no, I need to do this better, this better. I need to take it more seriously. And then,
Who was coaching you at that young age? Was it your dad mostly?
yeah, I mean, no one coached me. It was mostly my dad. Maybe some pros that were around would give me a few pointers here and there, but just kind of, hey man, pick it up. You know what I mean? Just you kind of learn by watching and being around it, and I think that's kind of the best way that kids learn, learning
Yeah.
from watching and seeing other players do it. Because if you start telling your kid, no, you have to swing like this, and like this, at some point the kids figure it out. You know what I mean?
Was it you or your dad that kind of realized that, hey, Jared's got a talent for this thing? Let's give him every opportunity to develop his skill?
No one's really ever asked me that question, so I never really thought about it. But I assume my dad probably saw something in me, and he saw that I liked the sport, and he wanted to share that with me, and so he started giving me some opportunities, and then yeah, it was basically from there. My dad basically was like, "Yeah, I want to try to help him out,"
And you were, I think, you're a one goal handicap at the age of 14. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't remember.
You don't remember?
I went up to like 1, 2, 3 pretty quick, and then I got stuck at 3 for a few years. So yeah, I was about 1 or 2 at 14 or 15.
Hmm.
Then it took me like 2, 3 years to get from 3 to 4. Why? I don't know. Horses playing better polo. I don't know. Taking it more seriously, and then from there I went 4, 5, 6, and then I've been at 6 for 2 years now.
Who are some of the guys that you were playing alongside with back in Chicago at that age?
There was a bunch of Obregons that were there. Augustine, Raphael
Still are.
Obregon. Yeah, there still are. They're kind of revived the polo in Chicago, so that's good to see. Matthias and Tomas Obregon, who are still running it there, I've known them since I was young, and they were a part of the polo there in Chicago as well. Anthony Garcia, I remember played with him. Antonio
Mhm.
Galvan, Julian Aguilar. No, there was a nice crew.
Good. So, was there interscholastic polo at that time, or no? That had not really blossomed yet.
I don't know. I was never big into that.
You were playing with the big boys too often.
Yeah, I guess. No, I don't know. I never really played arena, and so I didn't even know. I played my first arena game just a few years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
What is your handicap for arena?
honestly, I don't know. I think I'm 6'7". I don't play it enough to even know if I have a handicap. I played Gladiator when they were doing Gladiator, and then this
Yeah.
past summer I played USPA Handicap Open in Aspen at the Aspen Valley Polo Club. But I think I'm 6 or 7. But
Now, don't be surprised
it's not something I enjoy, but I like grass polo.
don't be surprised after this podcast and someone listens to us like, oh, we got to get Zenni into arena polo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
No, no
might
chance.
happen.
No chance though, man. No chance.
So between Chicago, you said you spent your winters in Florida, and that would be at Villa del Lago. Is that right?
Yep, yep.
When did you found that club?
I believe it was 2006.
Okay.
Yeah, around that time. So we've had it for a while, and yeah, there's a lot of good memories and stuff around it. Definitely happy that we have it. It's a good resource to have. And
Your frequency of polo is quite a bit. You're playing summers here in Chicago, and then during the winters, you're playing down there. So it was accessible to you. So
yeah,
you had
yeah.
the opportunity to really develop your skill playing with those guys during the winter season, and then the guys up here in.
It's definitely something that obviously helped my development. The only time I really wasn't playing was maybe like May and June when there was nothing going on.
Mhm.
And then in the fall, which was like the biggest layover, I remember I would go down to Florida and be like, man, I haven't been on a horse for 3 months. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Then you pick it up pretty quickly. But yeah, that definitely helped in the development of just kind of keep on playing, And then I never really went to Argentina when I was too young.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was a good opportunity to have.
I think it was what Malcolm Gladwell talked about, the 10,000 hour rule,
Yeah.
where you do something for 10,000 hours, yeah, and you become an expert at it.
Hmm.
I think the same thing applies to sport. Like, if you ever read Andre Agassi's biography sort of thing, like the same thing applied. He had so much accessibility to the sport and primarily because of his father, but like you, it was the same thing. And you were in front of the right people at all times. So when did you join Team USPA?
I joined when I was 18 years old. I remember because the first year I was at FAU in Boca, and I remember I had all the documentation at the library at FAU, and that was the
Mhm.
first year of college. And then after that, I transferred to Miami the next semester.
So you graduated from Miami, right?
Yeah, I graduated. It took me a little longer, but I graduated just this past 2020.
With a marketing and finance degree, is that right?
Yep, marketing and
Nice.
finance.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you, thank you.
You're a hurricane.
I'm a hurricane. It took a while to get because I was coming to Argentina. It took a little more time, but I got it done.
I mean, with all the travel and polo and what's required of you,
Mhm.
Were you able to do a lot of in person, or is everything had to be done kind of remotely?
When I would be in like middle school and high school, I would have to kind of fight with my teachers, be like, listen, I'm going to Florida. I'm playing the best season in the US. I kind of need to do this. Can you help me out? And so what I would do with my teachers is I would have them connect with tutors I had in Florida. And then the tutors between and the teachers, they would work together to give me the curriculum and stuff. And then I would take tests, quizzes, homework. So that's kind of how I did it when I was young. But then when I was in college and I would become in Argentina, I would do a few online classes. But the
Mhm.
University of Miami Business School, you basically have to do it all in person. So that's kind of why it took me a little longer.
Gotcha. Did they take any interest in knowing that they had a professional polo player in the making?
No, for sure. We actually had a University of Miami polo team.
What? When
Yeah,
was this?
this is about 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, so we actually were in the collegiate tournament. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, we didn't do very well because none of us knew how to play arena polo. Three guys, I think I was 4 goals or something. I was like, no, this will be easy. And then the guys who play arena polo, they just kick your
Yeah.
butt because they know all the little rules and stuff. I mean, when you have the ball, you're like, okay, I'm much better than everyone else. But then they start going around the wall and doing all those kind of things. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I had that conversation with Kareem. I said, I watched him in the 2015 Intercollegiate Championships, and he scared the hell out of me watching it because, I mean, it's one of those things where you could easily tell, that one guy who's playing a sport that he's got that little extra
Yeah,
in him. And he was one of those guys. And I told him, like, there's times where I thought you would throw yourself into the concrete wall so many times because you were just outpacing everyone there. But you had your composure, you stayed on your horse, but holy crap, I was just waiting to fly off and
yeah.
bust his collarbone or something like that. It scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's definitely more. I mean, you're on top of each other, so it's more aggressive, which I like it. It's more like hockey, no? I think people are in a
Yeah.
confined space, and it's more. We call it rocking and rolling, but that was fun. So yeah, that was about 3 or 4 years ago that the University of Miami put that together.
Does that team still exist or
I don't
no?
think so. I think it lasted a year or two, and then it kind of died from there.
Gosh, man. If you'd let me know if you have the jerseys. Do they have the hurricane logo on it?
Yeah, they were actually cool. I forgot who made it. I think Casablanca made them, and they had the hurricane logo and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Senator Johnson was the guy who was organizing it all, so I'll definitely look into that for
Think
you.
you should have it, sign it Jared Zenni, and we'll auction it off.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I love it with seeing intercollegiate teams, especially the big schools
Mhm.
that had big sports programs get involved in polo. I remember putting a map together and you could see all the big schools, all the big sports schools, and a lot of them had polo teams on it. I think there was
Mhm.
Texas
Yeah.
A&M, you had Stanford on there, so it's like, holy crap, man, that's pretty impressive. I think we were at UConn, and I think like the number of championships, like the combined men's and women's had, was like tied with the number of basketball championships that UConn had. It's like, did you know this was been in your school for this long? And it kind of blew up. Like, what?
That's
Who
cool,
would have
yeah.
thunk? So you graduated. What year did you graduate? You just graduated this past year?
I just graduated, yeah, this spring.
Okay.
I actually finished the last part of the semester through Zoom because of the whole COVID fiasco.
Yeah. So are you going to take that anywhere? Are you going to
I don't know.
put the mallet down, or are you going to kind of
No.
try to balance the two between?
No, I just have it as a resource where whenever I'm done playing polo, my dad was like, "Listen, I don't care what happens, you're getting your degree." Because at one point I was like, "Dad, listen, I want to focus on my craft and I want to take it seriously." And he was like, "No, you get hurt, you're done. You're
Yeah.
not gonna be able to do anything." And so it was a little battle I had with my parents, but we figured it out. I mean, I at one point when I was looking at where would I go to college, one of the options was actually UVA. And I decided, no, I don't want to really play arena polo. I won't be able to play in the winter. And so then I figured out, I was like, listen, why don't I just go to the University of Miami and then I'll either live down there, I'll commute, which I ended up just commuting, putting on my classes 2 or 3 times a week, and then just commuting those days and figuring it out from there.
Now, at what year did you and your dad kind of get involved in the high goal season in Florida, or has your dad been involved in that for quite some time?
My dad started probably around 2012 or so. He always liked polo, but he was never like me where it drove him crazy. You know what I mean? He was very competitive.
Mhm.
He loved playing. And I think the reason that he played so long was because he saw the passion I had for it and he wanted to play with me. And actually, one of my highlights is we got to I think it was the the Yovasak or Joe Barry 20 goal final together,
Mhm.
and we lost by 2 goals or something like that. But that was one of my favorite moments.
That obviously spun from there into your guys' involvement in the high goal season at IPC.
Hmm.
Because when did you guys won the Joe Barry? When was that?
I want to say 2015, 2015, 2016.
And did you guys play after that together, or was it at that time that you guys started to put a serious team together? Because it was 2018, you guys won the Open Championship
Yep.
as the Daily Racing Forum. And I think I read an article stating that that team was kind of put together relatively quickly.
Yeah, actually, that year was the year I got to the final of the Joe Barry with my dad. And then that same year, 2018, because I won the Joe
Mhm,
Barry previously with Palm Beach Illustrated in 2016. I think that's what I mentioned.
mhm.
And then we got to the final 2 years later with my dad, Hilario Ulloa and Agustino Obregon. And then that same year, we swapped out my dad for Mariano Obregon, and then we played the now called Gauntlet.
So tell me about that season because you put together this team kind of at the last second for the Open. And I remember following it this year. And one of the distinct things with your team is that you didn't have the team owner or lower goal polo player.
Yeah,
You guys were spread out as four pros,
yeah.
not three pros and a patron sort of thing. Walk me through that year because I feel as though just I always tell people like, oh, what made them one, what compared them to, like, in all honesty, I think it's because they had four pros on the
Hmm.
field. They're so evenly spaced out across the entire field that I think that gave them the advantage. Am I wrong?
No, no, you're definitely right. It was a curse and a blessing at the same time. The first game we played against the dream team, Facundo and Cambiaso, and we lost by 5 goals. I think it was 15-10 or so. I think we lost. And we realized we're like, listen, we're not up to this level, you know what I mean? And then so from there we actually Julio Arellano was like, listen, like I can fix this. Like I want to be your coach. And so he was out for the season because he had gotten hurt. He had a fall, and so Julio started coaching us, and we actually started messing around with some positions. I started at back, and then Julio was like, listen, let's try you at one. I think the game I played at one, I scored like 5, 6 goals. I was like, listen, I'm having fun. It's good with all good with me. And then
Mhm,
we switched back, and then so we weren't winning that many games in the beginning of the season. It was actually kind of worrisome. We're like, man, we know we have a good team if we could just click. There were chuckers and plays where like, man, there's something amazing here. This team could go super far, and we just couldn't seem to put it together. And Julio kept on putting the pieces together and kept on working on us, and hours of studying film with him because he's big on that. And he wasn't nice because he didn't need to be. You know what I mean? He needed a result. And as soon as we got our system down, the game just kind of came easy to us. I mean, it was basically like, listen, you have this 10 goal animal, Ladio. He's 10 goals. He's going to do what he's going to do. But you three, you
mhm.
need to be soldiers. You know what I mean? Everyone do their job and nothing more. And then Ilario, he's just free. You know what I mean? He can do whatever he wants because he's Hilario Joa. He's a machine.
During that process, what would distinguish or what certain skills or characteristics that would, let's say, distinguish you from going in the one position to, let's say, dropping back into the four?
To be honest, I don't really know. I think Julio was looking for a change of pace when he did the change because we already
Mhm,
lost 2 games with that. And he's like, listen, okay, well, I want to try to change something and see if it works. So, yeah, I mean, I played that whole season at back, and this was kind of the beginning when I just started playing the number 4 position. Before that, I was playing 2. Julio was like, no, I prefer you to be in the back because you have a little better vision of the field than Nino does. And Nino is better than you at going to goal.
mhm,
And he pushes harder the plays. And so that's kind of what set the positions. And then from there, like I said, me, Augustine, and Nino, we all had to be soldiers and do our job. And then Hilario, do what you do.
mhm.
So that's kind of what took time to figure out that system. And once we figured it out and everyone started doing their jobs, there were plays that Hilario was just alone. He would literally take the ball from 160 to the other 60 without anyone touching him.
And you guys had a relatively short time to kind of put that together, but you guys have obviously found your rhythm. What happened after that? You obviously guys started to click and make it all work as a team.
Yeah, so we had a few good games in the Gold Cup in the CB Whitney. We kind of got our butts kicked, and that's kind of where we were like, okay, listen, like we need to figure something out. In the Gold Cup, we got to the semifinal. I think we lost against FlexJet, and that was when things were starting to kind of click, and we're like, listen, like we're right there. And then in the U.S. Open, all of a sudden, everyone figured out their job, and it was just kind of something clicked, and there was no turning back.
And you guys were the underdog. I mean, you're going against the, Valiente, which was kind of probably a shoe-in, I
Yeah.
think, that year to kinda win it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't have any pressure, right? The pressure was on them. But
Yeah.
yeah.
What was the feeling that you had after winning?
To be honest, it was a blur. I don't remember a moment after winning, which it's something I regret because I would love to be able to remember that, but I don't remember much of the game. So because when I play, I kind of get into a zone and I kind of don't. There's guys who they can tell you 5, 6 plays that happened in the game with exact detail, and to me, everything kind of becomes a blur, and it's just I'm in the moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish I was able to remember a little more. But yeah, after the game, I remember after everyone left, I just sat in the grass, right where the kind of where the tent goes on the side closest to the IPC stands, and I just sat
Mhm.
there and just kind of tried to take it in because I knew this was something that was very hard to do, even less against two guys like that, right? In the whole Valiente organization.
Yeah. Hey, man, at your age, at such a young age with so much of your career ahead of you, that's a big accomplishment.
It's pretty cool.
Oftentimes I get people ask me the rules of the game and what's involved in it, and people who are non-familiar with polo always think that it's this kind of croquet on horseback type of game. It's not whatsoever. Then they
Not at
start
all.
getting into the strategy
Yeah.
of it. I'm glad you kind of discuss that in detail, of kind of hold that process of putting a team together, what positions that you guys need to be in to be successful.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people really don't know how that process works, especially in polo. When they see the game, it's kind of a mess. It's like hockey in a way. Like,
Hmm.
what position is what person? And everyone seems to have their hand on the puck. And the same kind of thing goes with polo. But, as you get used to the game, you start to see why certain people are in the position that they are.
Yeah.
There seems to be a flow to the game.
No, for sure.
I didn't get a chance to see that after being in the sport for a few years now.
Once you kind of figure out the flow of the game, you're like, polo is actually kind of easy. And that's kind of what I started to realize when I came to Argentina because it's such a flow. You're like, okay, you just count your men. Okay, I'm with this guy. He's with this guy. The number 3 is with this guy. And the number 4 is with this guy. It's simple. I stay with my man. I beat my man. Everyone beats their man, and the game's over. By the time you know it, you won by 7 goals. You know what I mean? It's simple.
Mhm. Is there a distinct type of play or pace of the game between here in the US and in Argentina?
For sure. It's kind of a not a different sport, but a little bit because here it's more the faster you play, the better. You know what I mean? The more rhythm you can put to the game, the better.
Mhm.
The other team is going to break down no matter what, even if there's no one in front of you. If you don't have a teammate, hit the ball, hit it, hit it, hit it, run, 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 run. And in the US, it's more okay. I want possession of the ball. I don't want to give you possession of the ball. So it's
Okay.
kind of a little more sticky. You don't want to give away the possession of the ball, especially if you're playing against guys like Facundo or Cambiaso or Hilario. You don't want to give them the ball. You know what I mean? It's kind of like soccer. If you have possession of the ball, they can't score.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of the main difference I see between Argentina and the US. Again, it also has to do with horses and the field size because Palermo, the field being that big, the only way to play is to run. I mean, you stop for a second to look around and to tap it 2, 3 times, and your players are 150 yards away. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Where do you think that stems from? The possession of the ball? Is that just kind of maybe that's American sports in general? We all want possession?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I would say like if I'm playing against Facundo Pires, I don't want to hit the ball to him. At the same time, with polo in the U.S. being a sport with sponsors with patrons,
Mhm.
you can't play the same way because here and in Argentina, there's 4 pros, no matter what. And so you can't really play the same way. So you can't trust on that fourth player on the patron to help you out as much as a pro would. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can kind of try to play that way between 3 players, but sometimes the chain link is broken. You know what I mean? So my player, he's too far away. I need him to come back and to get the ball, and then we start to play from there. You know what I mean?
I do. It's amazing that just that one person can have such a dramatic effect on the overall pace of the game. I think you kind of you hit it with your analogy of there's a break in the chain a little bit.
Hmm.
I don't want to speak poorly against patrons. We all love them,
Yeah.
for lots of reasons. But
No, for sure.
when you have a difference between guys who are 6, 4 goal, 5, 10 goal polo players, and you have maybe a one or two kind of
Hmm.
thing, it has a lot of effects on it. Do you think that American polo will ever get to a point where you're going to see all pros on the field?
I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. I mean, for that to happen, just in my personal view, We need to get the TV involved, because TV, if whether you like it or not, today the stuff that has the highest ratings is sports,
Yeah.
and they need content. And so polo is something that if you more or less get people to understand, people are going to watch it. I mean, people here, you go to some restaurant here in Argentina, they're talking about teams that played in the Argentine Open this morning or this afternoon, and they have like a following behind the teams. I think that's something that we need to kind of do better of in the US. It's hard because it's not like a full season, it's only 3 months. And I don't know if putting a 22 goal game on TV is the best thing for it. If you can put something similar to what Argentina has, it's a different story. But for that to happen, you need money, right? You need sponsors, wherever it comes from. But yeah.
Well, yeah, to your point, I mean, a media, cash infusion from any sort of media deal occupying those rights is great. But to your point, you need an audience for that
Yeah.
in order to make it valuable. I think to your point, polo has a long way to go, I think, in America to develop that audience and get to a point where your NBCs of the world are paying for the content
Hmm.
from the rights holder itself versus, like, let's say, a time buy scenario. So it's on the hook of the USPA and other organizations to foot the bill to produce that hour or two worth of content
Yeah.
and hope that the audience will get there.
I know now they kind of have the final of the US Open on CBS, but now they kind of have like a shortened version of it. And me personally, I don't think it's a great representation of the sport. I think they need to show the whole game, because when it's kind of just cuts and pieces, people, they don't really get the full taste of the game, and you don't really know what's going on, and it can confuse people even more. You know what I mean?
Kind of breaching an important topic. I mean, I used to work for the United States Polo Association, still involved in it, consulting agency, and have worked with the Ganseys and others. And, I look at it from my perspective, having been in the industry and consulting on behalf of mainstream sports and what have you. So my vantage point might be different than, let's say, you, the pro on the field.
No, for sure, for sure.
If there was another sport you would see replicating or a way to mirror of any kind, do you have one in mind? Or bits and pieces taken from other sports that you would love to see applied to polo? And this doesn't have to necessarily be, things that are on the field. It can be ways that certain things are broadcasted to engage spectators, that sort of thing.
Soccer is a good one because they kind of film the whole field at once. You know what I mean? And I mean, they've shown some of the excuses that I've heard of why polo is hard to film is because the field's so big. But they do it. ESPN films it in Argentina, and it's fine. I mean, you see it perfectly. They
Yeah.
show replays from all these different angles. To me, that's not an excuse. So I think kind of the way they film soccer, they kind of show like the whole kind of field, but at the same time, the little zoomed in. They use different cameras. And the same time, like hockey, where again they show the whole dynamic of the sport, but they have that one main camera, and you kind of have to put faces to people. You know what I mean? Create identities for players for people to follow, which I think the
Mhm.
NBA has done a really good job. Golf has done a really good job with that. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, no, you did. It's important. There is something unique about soccer because the way that soccer is viewed from a television perspective, it's the game in its entirety. I look at American sports like football, it's always a stop and go. There's media timeouts and things like that. There's always a level of anticipation going on and suspense, whereas let's say soccer, there's not so much of that.
yeah,
I find polo to be kind of a healthy medium, partly because there's more scoring that goes on in polo. And at
for
any
sure.
moment, you could see a breakaway go on, and those breakaways are pretty sweet to see.
That's a good thing for TV, though. You know what I mean? That keeps
Yeah.
people involved. It's not like you're watching a hockey game and you look away for 2 seconds and it's still 1-0. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think from a television standpoint, I think it's getting there. I got to give shout outs to the Ganseys and Mike Ferraro with Chucker
Yeah.
TV, the guys from Polo Channel and Horseplay. I mean, when I got a chance to meet those guys back in, 2013, I think it was, or 2014, their vision of being like the NFL films and their ways of filming it is pretty much spot on. I
Oh
think
yeah, that's
there's a nice little, they
crazy
got a good rhythm to it now. Can it be done better? Yeah, it always can.
hmm
But, you got to shovel more money to it
for
then.
sure.
And not to mention, the culture of sports watching in America, I think is vastly different from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That's for
No,
sure.
yeah, I think so too.
This podcast episode is presented by Global Polo TV. The world's premier destination for video on-demand polo content has arrived. Now you can watch the nation's best live and archive tournament matches and compelling behind-the-scenes content from anywhere at any time and on any digital device. Global Polo TV has over 9,000 subscribers, 200 plus hours of live broadcasted games, and over 500 hours of produced content from weekly shows to in-depth features. Sign up today. All on-demand polo games and content are free. Want to watch official USPA games live? Then get your Polo Pass today by visiting globalpolo.com so as not to miss this year's high goal season and upcoming 2021 Gauntlet of Polo. Welcome to Global Polo TV. Now, you played in England too.
I played
right?
in England one summer for 1 month. Yeah. 2 12-goal tournaments, and that was it.
Is there a difference there, or is it more like Argentina? Is it more like the U.S.?
I would think it would be more like the U.S. To be honest, I didn't really have that long of an experience to kind of know, but I would assume it's similar to that of the U.S., right?
And now you're in Argentina now.
Mhm.
What tournament are you playing in?
I am playing in the Cámara de Diputados. I'm playing in that, and then the substitute for Leninita in the Open.
Okay, gotcha. And is it the first time you played in both tournaments, or did you play?
I played Palermo in 2018. I played Hurlingham and Palermo in 2018. Classified for that, which was pretty cool. Last year I played the classification. And then now if you don't classify, you go and play the Cámara de Diputados. And last year after the classification, I fell in the practice and I kind of got hurt. I hurt my scapula a little bit, so I was kind of out for season.
Mhm.
And then this year I changed organizations and I'm with Irenita now. So I just played the Cámara de Diputados this year with them and then see what happens. We'll see what's going on for next year.
What's involved in the classification? You say classify as in the team
The team, yeah.
qualifying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have a qualifier because there's 8 teams, 8 already fixed teams from the previous year for the Argentine Open. And then you play for 2 spots for the spot number 9 and spot number 10.
Okay.
And they have a qualification team they have a qualification tournament for that. That's played parallel to Hurlingham now.
And then the 8 teams that were in it prior get an automatic seats in the following year.
Those 8 teams play Tortugas and Hurlingham. And then for Palermo, you add those 2 other teams for 10 teams in Palermo.
All right. It's just kind of like NCAA basketball in a way.
Yeah. It's kind of, Soccer down here kind of works the same way. It's like for the League A and League B, you play off of that last spot. You know what I mean? So the 8th spot of the Argentine Open plays against the winner of now the Cámara de Diputados. And whoever wins that game keeps that 8th spot in Argentine Open.
Okay. Now, is the goal level in the Open, is it pretty wide? Yeah,
I mean, you have anywhere from 28 to 40 goals, right? I think the biggest difference, maybe not so much in players, but is horses. So that's the biggest difference for me.
And you think your team is pretty well equipped when it comes to the horses? You got a lot of depth there?
Yeah, I think so. I'm with Lenita's organization, and they have one of the best breeds in the world. I mean, Pablo McDonough, he's mounted just by his breed. Juan Martinero plays some of Lenita. Pablo McDonough, or Pelon Sterling plays a few of Lenita. And then there's the whole Lenita team. They all play horses that are from their breed as well. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of horses. Yeah, that's a good thing.
So going back to our conversation that we had, you mentioned that polo needs to do a better job of putting more emphasis and background on the players. Do you feel the same way when it comes to the horses, is to humanize those horses in a way?
Yeah, I think so. And they kind of do that a little bit in Argentina. It's kind of difficult because it's hard to see what horse is what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But those super horses, kind of like what they did with Adolfo Cambiaso's Cuartetera, everyone knew this horse is a Cuartetera. When Cambiaso's on this horse, it's kind of game over for everyone else. And so each player has a horse like that. And there's a few horses throughout the Argentine Open that are known, at least through polo, as this player's really good horse, or this famous horse, or blah, blah, blah. And people know that. And I think they do need to do a better job of talking about these horses and making it about the horses as well as the players.
You know, if the Kentucky Derby can do it, why can't polo?
Exactly, yeah.
You know, it's I mean, I feel like the rider is what kind of gets screwed at the end. Like, who really cares about the jockey? Like, who's riding the horse?
Yeah.
It's I've always been an advocate of trying to humanize the horse as much as possible, because they're the big athletes on there.
Yeah,
and
I mean, without them,
they're beautiful animals, and I always enjoy watching kind of the behind the scenes as a team preps and these horses get mounted and they get a pep in their step and they want to go out there and run and compete. It's pretty cool.
No, yeah.
So you're going to be ending the season in Argentina. What do you got planned for Wellington this year?
So we're finishing up the 2020 Gold Cup semifinals.
Hmm.
And that's going to be like the first week of February or so. We're playing with the same team that we played with last year.
Yep.
And then this 2021 Gauntlet, I'm playing with Chip Campbell, Mariano Obregon, and Gallego Ferrario. So yeah, that'll be fun. I'm excited.
Excellent. Is there another team or rivalry that you have your eye out for?
Nah, I mean this year all the teams are good. You hear people putting teams together, and there's a bunch of teams. I mean, you obviously have Pilot, which is with the Pierces and Curtis Pilot, who are always a contender. You have Tonkawa, Sapo, and Francisco Elizalde. And you also have, again, Camiaso. Whenever he's playing, he's always a contender, no matter what.
Hmm.
And then you have Park Place, which is Hilario Joa and Juan Britos. Those are four tough teams that, I mean, I know I wouldn't want to play. But we're going to have to. So we're going to have to do our best, and then it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Is there one particular player out there that you enjoy playing against that is kind of like your little friendly rival?
I definitely don't enjoy playing against Hilario or Facundo or Cambiaso because, I mean, how can you enjoy that, right? You can.
Hey, if it makes you a better
No,
player.
no, no, for sure. I'm not saying I'm up for the competition, but it's not something that I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna have a fun day. It's like, no, this is this is gonna be tough. But nah, but it's always fun to play against those kind of guys. And like you said, you play against with better players, and that makes you better. And you kind of figure out. It's nice to see where you are horse wise, because those guys are at the top of their level. It's nice to see where you are as a player wise. It's kind of a nice meter to see kind of where you're at.
Now, after Wellington, do you take some time off or will you go to England to play or what does your year look like?
I probably will be somewhere in the US. I've been going to the Aspen Valley Polo Club for the last 2 summers,
Hmm.
but Santa Barbara is always a contender of maybe going there. Hopefully, I can put something together to go there this year. And I mean, going to England would be great. I've never had the opportunity to kind of go there, except that one time I went. But that'd be great. I would love to do that. But then after that, after the summer, head back to Argentina.
Yeah. And now you played also, you represented the USA and you guys won the 2019 Westchester Cup,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
What was it like playing against those guys? Do they kind of play at a different pace or level?
Nah, it's kind of the same. I know most of them because we play here in Argentina a good amount against each other, and I'm played against Tommy Beresford, who I'm friends with, and Henry Porter, who plays a lot in the U.S. I played against with. Jack Richardson's kind of the only one I never really played against. And Ollie Cudmore played against him down here in Argentina, so they're kind of all guys that you end up playing against.
Hmm.
Kind of similar. You try to play kind of that Argentine style of polo with four pros, right?
Are there any sort of tournaments or events coming up where you're going to be representing the USA in?
I think we're trying to put together a Westchester the next year or two. Yeah. And a Camacho Cup with Mexico and the US.
Ah, that's right. That's right.
Something, yeah. So the idea is we were gonna try to do that this year, but since COVID and everything, it got postponed. So we'll see what happens with that.
Now, obviously, you're taking the route of a professional polo player. Do you have any sort of goals or aspirations in terms of where you see yourself in the sport 3 or 5 years from now?
Hopefully, in 3 or 5 years, I'll be 8, 9 goals. Hopefully, that's the goal right now.
Hmm.
Obviously, try to get myself superbly mounted. I started breeding a little bit this year, so hopefully those horses will kind of start coming in and showing some bright future. But hopefully playing the Argentine Open, already just kind of a staple in the Argentine Open, a staple in the high goal in the US, and hopefully be able to get over to England and play the high goal over there too. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I see a little more difficult, but it's just a matter of putting your head down and figuring stuff out.
Are there players today or former players that you looked as mentors to help your game?
This is cool because we kind of come back to where we started, but I kind of always looked at Julio Arellano. I always loved the way he went about the game, super professional. I loved how he played the game, super intelligent of the way he conducted himself away on the field. A great horseman, and so when we put the 2018 U.S. Open team together, I always had some conversations with him prior, But then I started to have that day to day with Julio, shooting penalties together, watching film together, and that was kind of really cool for me. And I learned a lot from that, for sure. And now, just this past summer or a few months ago, I called him to whenever I have a question or anything. I pick up the phone and call Julio, and he's always there to help me out and give me his advice on the situation.
What element of your game do you think you need to work on? Is there an area that you want to continue to get better?
I would like to get better at being able to control the game a little more. Then obviously getting better mounted. That's probably the first one. Getting better mounted. Like that's always number one on my list because without horses, we're not going anywhere. No, being able to control the game is not force things. You know what I mean? Because that's when maybe I find myself where I get into trouble. Is when I try to force things too much, which can be a good thing because it could work out, but it also could be a bad thing.
What would be an example of that where you don't have the control of the game where something is forced or reactive?
So let's say I don't know X chucker. I don't know you're down by 3, chucker 5, and instead of hitting a back, I play it and I try to run around or score. You know what I mean? Instead of doing the right play and the play that I'm supposed to do, let me try to make a play here.
Mhm.
They hook you, they hit it back, and they score the other way. You know what I mean? You're just trying a little too hard. You just kind of got to let the game come to you. I mean, at some point, you kind of have to try to force things because you're losing, and it's either all or nothing. But kind of being able to manage that a little better, I think, is something that would be really beneficial for me.
In that scenario, what would be the right decision?
That scenario, let's say if I'm defending, if I'm on the defending side of the field, because I like to split up the field in halves, right? You have your attacking side, and you're attacking 50% of the field, and you're defending 50% of the field. And you play both of those sides very differently, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to goal, normally your backs are going to go to the boards, depending on whether your teammates ask for it. Usually 90% of the time, I try to hit tails because it's more of a dangerous play. But so I always try to hit tails. So I mean, the right play would be to hit a tail to the boards and then wait for the ball to come back and then go from there. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. It's like a basketball game going into it with the final seconds to the left.
Yeah.
Although you can always just pass it to Michael Jordan and then he can just do his thing.
Yeah.
But no, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That
Well,
really is.
it doesn't have to be like the last chuck or something like that. Here's another example. I'm 100 yards away from the goal. I'm the last man. And instead of shooting it and either put it in or out, I try to dribble around the guy, right? So I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, I can score this. I hit it a little to the right and I can run around to the right. The ball bounces, I miss it, and they go, and we're running the other way. That's another example of forcing. That could be in the first, second, third chucker. Just trying to do that right play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which makes a big difference at the end of the day.
Now, do you guys strategize those situations or try to, in practice, have the foresight to see those scenarios and play them out?
Yeah, theoretically, that's the idea, right? But because we're such competitors, you're like, no, the ball's right here. I'm 100 yards away. This is easy. I can go score. That's just kind of the
Yeah.
way my mind works, right? I see the ball, I see space. I'm like, okay, I'll get a little creative, and I can make this happen.
Do you anticipate sometimes of who you're playing against and what they might do in that sort of scenario?
Yeah, I mean, if it's Facundo Pierres, I'm probably gonna shoot the ball, right? But if I'm
Yeah.
standing in front of a 2, 3 goal player, 4 goal player, the percentage of me trying to go make that play is higher than whether it was Facundo Pierres, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of got to take that into account as well.
No, there's a lot of calculations that get involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts that people don't realize.
Well, it's a lot of people tell that polo's like playing chess
Hmm.
to some degree.
Yeah,
Every single move that you're making is to anticipate 10 or 20 moves ahead.
yeah, and the ones that can see those other moves happening are the ones who are 10 goals, 9, 8, 10 goals. You know what I mean? That's obviously the goal.
For those of who are a little bit of maybe adrenaline junkies
Hmm.
out there, what would you say to them to sell them that you need to start picking up this sport? Why do you love polo so much?
I love polo so much because of the horses. That's just me personally. I've always loved horses, but I mean, there's nothing like getting on a horse, running 30 miles per hour, and you be kind of coming one with that horse and going and scoring a goal or making plays. And I mean, once you get on that horse, you're one together and you're a team, right? You're synchronized and there's nothing that can theoretically stop you, right? That's something that no other sport has. You have horse racing and jumping, but you're going and playing a team sport and running and rubbing and doing this. You're basically playing hockey on horseback, which I mean, there's nothing like it. Trust me, if you get on a horse and you start playing polo, you're not going to get off.
What type of characteristics would someone might have that would make polo perfect for them?
You have to like animals, right? If you don't like animals, polo is not for you. But are you saying as an athlete or a person?
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to be a little crazy because you're running 30, 35 miles per hour down the field, running, bumping into other guys that are on horses. So you have to like adrenaline. And I mean, that's part of the reason we all play the sport, right?
Yeah.
But today, now more than ever, people are becoming fitter and working out more. And so you have to be now in good shape. But any sport that is kind of racket based, tennis, golf, hockey, baseball, all things that'll translate very well to polo because it's kind of similar. Like golf and tennis, the swing is kind of the same,
Yeah.
just on a different plane, right?
Now, Jim Jury, who patrons the Oak Brook polo team, he would tell you that polo is not a sport you play to get fit. You have to be fit to play polo.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
No, 100%. 100%. I mean, you can be fit more or less playing polo because you play so much, or at least me personally, I play practice every day and I ride every day, shoot penalties, stick and ball. It makes me fit. But me as a professional athlete, I work out every morning, every afternoon, every day I work out and I have to be fit. And whenever if I take a few days off from working out, I can feel the difference on the horse. That's something that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so when I work out, I feel stronger on the horse. I feel more in tune. Everything comes easier. I can hit the ball farther. I can ride better. So I 100% agree with
Now, you mentioned something earlier in our conversation where you talked about body type.
you. Mhm.
And, you played football freshman and sophomore year, and then you went into tennis. Obviously, football, you're trying to bulk up,
Yeah.
depending upon what position you're in. So, what type of body type is preferred for polo? I mean, and you're a tall guy. How tall are you?
I'm 6'3".
So you're 6'3". So you have a big center of gravity, whereas the smaller guys kind of have a little bit of an advantage. Yeah, and you played tennis. Obviously, tennis is a lot of endurance that takes there.
Yeah.
What do you think the body type is for a polo player? What kind of workouts are you doing to keep yourself fit? Where's the strength that needs to be had?
I think tennis is kind of a good body type to kind of say, maybe not as tall. I think
Mhm.
being tall in polo is actually beneficial. It's one,
Okay.
you can hit the ball further, you can reach farther, you have longer legs to ride. That's my view, right? And I'm
Mhm.
not saying you want to be 6'5" playing polo. I mean, I think I'm fine with my height. I think my height is good for polo. But there's other people they're smaller and they're really agile.
Yeah.
If you're big and you're not agile, then yeah, okay, it might be better to be a little smaller so you can have a little more agility.
Mhm.
But regarding workouts, I mean, you obviously want to try to stay as thin as possible. So I mean, you want to eat healthy and do a decent amount of cardio and do more functional workouts, a more full body type of workouts. Instead of just doing solely bench press, you do with just one weight or do it with bands. It's kind of more strength, not bulk. You know what I mean? So you need a lot of core muscles. I mean, you obviously need endurance through your legs and your inner
Mhm.
thighs. You need strength in your shoulders. You need a strong back just to balance all the rotation you're doing. But yeah, I mean, basically, you need to be in good shape.
What hurts the most after a polo game?
Nah, usually just from tightness, from squeezing the horse is my legs. Your hips get tight and it starts pulling on your lower back.
Yeah.
That's what I feel the most.
When I played polo, man, I was using muscles I didn't even know I had.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember when I was teaching my girlfriend how to ride. And I remember the next day she was like, no, like, this is fine. Like, I'll be fine. I'm like, no, no, tomorrow you're going to be sore. The next day she wakes up and she's waddling around because her inner thighs hurt her so much. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
people don't realize it, but whenever I give people lessons and stuff, I'm like, well, listen, like you might want to stretch a little bit when you get home because you're going to be sore. I'm like, no, I'm not really that tired. The next morning they text me, oh man, I'm dying.
Mhm. What is your diet? Are you
I'm actually vegan. Vegan.
okay?
I just started that about a year ago. But yeah, I eat a lot of food, a lot of veggies. I have protein supplements and this and that. But just overall try to eat healthy.
So now you said you had a girlfriend.
Yep, I have a girlfriend, yeah.
How many years is that?
It's about to be 3 years. Yeah.
Ooh, all right. Okay. Do I dare ask or no?
Not yet, but
Not
yeah,
yet.
we'll see. But nah, happy, so
Good
that's
deal.
good,
And
yeah.
is she picking up the sport? Is she playing more often or
She's not really in the sport. She's actually a professional yoga teacher, so that's good for me.
okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah. Helps with flexibility. Flexibility is obviously good for the sport. I feel bad now because I don't sound like a good boyfriend, but because I'm so busy, she always asks to ride, and I never can. I'm like, oh no, today it's a little difficult because I have this and that. I have practice, I have to work out this and that, and then it makes it a little difficult. But she definitely likes to ride and that kind of stuff, and she picks up a mallet every once in a while. But
There you go.
mhm.
That's good. That's good. Well, excellent, man. Hey, you know what? You got a bright future ahead of you, buddy.
Thank you.
You're 25 now. You're a six-go polo player. You're playing in the biggest tournaments in the world. Excited to see you become the next 10 goaler in the U.S., which would be awesome.
That'd be cool.
Do you talk to Adam Snow a lot?
Adam, I haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah, I have a good relationship with him.
And then hopefully we can get you back here in Chicago and playing, man.
Yeah,
Let's see if you can
I almost was back there this summer, wasn't able to put together, but yeah.
help put a team together.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
growing out here,
I
man. Good
know.
things are
It's
happening.
good to hear. I'm really happy about that. I'm really happy about that.
And then we'll have to talk off base about your field up in the Lake
All
Shore.
right, sounds good.
That's for sure.
Sounds good.
But hey, buddy, it was great having you. All the best. Stay safe down there in Argentina, and we'll talk
All
soon.
right, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
This podcast episode is presented by Global Polo TV. The world's premier destination for video on-demand polo content has arrived. Now you can watch the nation's best live and archived tournament matches and compelling behind-the-scenes content from anywhere at any time and on any digital device. Global Polo TV has over 9,000 subscribers, 200 plus hours of live broadcasted games, and over 500 hours of produced content from weekly shows to in-depth features. Sign up today. All on-demand polo games and content are free. Want to watch official USPA games live? Then get your Polo Pass today by visiting globalpolo.com so as not to miss this year's high goal season and upcoming 2021 Gauntlet of Polo. Welcome to Global Polo TV. Now we have reached the part of the show where we address outside the board's issues affecting the sport of polo with the sharing of insights, ideas, and best practices towards solving everyday marketing, branding, and sponsorship problems, avoiding bad habits, or helping to navigate through new trends and how to best leverage those opportunities. Hi, everyone. On today's Insight, we are going to talk a little bit about the personal brand. Now, what is a personal brand? A personal brand is in many ways a corporate brand to some extent. It is who you are, what you stand for, the values you embrace, and the way in which you express those values. Just as a company's brand helps to communicate its value to customers and stand out from the competition, a personal brand does the same for individuals. Now, in the sport of polo, there are many personal brands that are out there. Some of the most notable ones, such as Nacho Fergasas and Pamela Flanagan, Nick Roldan. There's a lot of those guys that are out there that do a fantastic job in developing their personal brand and sharing their passions, their interests on social media and elsewhere. Now, as you look back at any sport, any sports ambassadors, they're professional athletes that play the sport, the amateurs that draw a lot of attention. If you are a club manager and what have you, a groom, there are a number of ways to develop your personal brand. And these individuals draw a great amount of attention to the sport because they are essentially the product that is ultimately on the field. So if you are a professional player or amateur player, a club manager who is listening to this right now, I would very much look into developing your own personal brand as it relates to polo and amplifying that personal brand with other interests that you might have that may emulate the polo lifestyle, whether it be cooking or food or cocktails, classic cars or anything like that, private travel, destinations, whatever it might be that emulates the polo lifestyle and also captures your interests are of great value. In today's world, especially via social media, people gravitate to those individuals because they aspire. They've lived vicariously through those individuals because they might aspire to be that person in what they do. They might not have necessarily the discretionary income to do what you can do, but they enjoy the lifestyle in terms of what you represent, the charitable efforts that you might do, and they have the same interest groups that you have, and they ultimately want to aspire to be something that you're doing. So in terms of developing your personal brand, it's highly encouraged, especially if you are a professional polo player. It's something that we love to follow our professional athletes. both as fans of the sports as well as people who are not fans of the sports. So, on this Insights, I'm actually going to share with you 10 golden rules for personal branding. And these were kind of developed via some of my friends that work in the personal branding industry, have either been a former actress and now a tech entrepreneur, or like my friend Jessica Zieg, who owns Simply Be agency that works with a number of individuals to develop their personal brand. So, what are these 10 golden rules? So, at first, you heard me say, have a focus to some degree. So, too many people are unfocused when it comes to press and coverage, trying to be everything to everyone. So, in the world of polo, the focus is obviously polo. There's no question about it, but also the focus on other interests that you might have and not necessarily over encompassing too many different categories that you might have. Focus on the small group that you're truly passionate about. In the case of some polo players, it just might be the horses, and that's the attention and focus that needs to be. So they are dedicated to equine welfare, the grooming, the breeding, and the training that goes into horses and what goes on to that. That individual might also, outside of polo, be into classic cars and might want to share their collection or other people's interests. So there's a number of focus that is encouraged in developing your personal brand. The second is be genuine. There's an easy way to have an original personal brand, and that is to be genuine and authentic. Obviously, you've heard that term coined by US Polo ASSN, and that is to live authentically. You do want to be genuine. Don't be fake. People often can filter and read between the lines of individuals. So you want to be authentic and live authentically in terms of developing your personal brand. And polo obviously is a great way to do that by pulling the curtain back on what you do for a living and the experiences that you have as either a player, a groom, club manager, what have you. The third is tell a story. If the personal brand isn't telling a story, you've already lost half of your potential audience. So there's constantly an ongoing story that's taking place. If you're a professional athlete, that story might be through the process of being involved in a particular tournament, whether that be at home or if it's an abroad opportunity. If you're competing in the Argentine Open, or if you have a unique friendly match to go and play in Singapore or Japan or the Middle East, a number of opportunities. Tell that story, walk people through the whole entire process, and keep people engaged. The fourth item is be consistent. You want to have regular communication as a personal brand with your audience that you're trying to attract. Don't just fall off and have people wishful thinking in terms of where you are or where you have been. Be consistent in your messaging when you are telling that story and around the focus in which topics that your guys are involved in. Be ready to fail. Failure is tough, and all of us generally want to avoid it. That's human nature. So be prepared to get negative comments. Be prepared, that things or the story that you're trying to tell didn't pan out the way it's supposed to. I think that's part of the purpose of being genuine and authentic, is to show those failures, as people will show sympathy for that or provide you with direction. Again, these people are kind of living vicariously through your personal brand. Create a positive impact. A big thing when it comes to personal brands that are out there is that if you are philanthropic and associated with a charity that is incredibly meaningful to you, attach yourself to that. As professional polo players, for example, you're the eyes and the ears of our sport and drive a lot of attention to that. So having a charitable connection associated with your personal brand is only going to increase your audience and bring attention to the needs and issues that are affecting this planet or the sport, social welfare, whatever it might be. Again, these tie back to your focus as well as your personal interest as well in the story that you want to tell. So that is incredibly important. Some good examples are out there. I know Nick Roldan, for example, has some charities that he works with that are hold dear to him. Pamela Flanagan, who is heavily involved in equine welfare, which is very personal to her. And they themselves have kind of become ambassadors to those programs. Number 7, follow a successful example. I know, developing a personal brand is something you want to do organically by yourself, but if there's someone that you follow, whether it be in a different sport or a lifestyle, or if it's some kind of influencer in themselves that you want to mirror yourself from as an example, do so. That's highly encouraged, and it's probably the easiest way in terms of developing your personal brand, by emulating the people that you follow most. Number 8 is live your brand. As mentioned before, one of the ways you can make building a personal brand difficult on yourself is to separate your brand from your personal life. While certainly doable, it's easier when initially creating a personal brand to have your actual lifestyle and brand be in one of the same. So again, some of this is kind of repeated in some sort of way, but again, living your brand. And this also ties back about being genuine and authentic by sharing your brand with your personal interests. I myself am a big foodie. I love to cook. That's something I want to share with the world. I also have a knack for things like watches, for example, as well as classic cars. So those are kind of my interest groups that I have, and obviously polo as being the club manager of the Oak Brook Polo Club. Number 9, let other people tell your story. Connect with other individuals, whether that be in the other media space, other influencers, other polo players, and what have you, and piggyback off of each other and let other people tell your story along that way. And that could be friends and family, people who have their own audience that is attracted to individuals like yourself. So again, highly encouraged. And last but not least, number 10 is leave a legacy. Once you built your personal brand with a reputation and community behind it, the next step is to think about the legacy that you'll leave behind. What are the keywords and actions that you want to be known for? As a professional polo player, especially those high goal individuals who have really in itself outside of personal branding have developed their own following and just a fan following in general, you have the opportunity to leave a profound legacy behind based on your interests, your charitable involvements, and what have you. So all things to consider. I will be developing kind of a roadmap, if you will, in terms of if you are interested in personal branding in itself. So look out for that on www.outsidetheboards.com for anyone who is interested in developing their personal brand overall. Again, I highly encourage it. There's just not enough personal brands, in my opinion, that are affiliated with the sport of polo. I would highly encourage more professional polo players to take interest in doing that. You know, Outside the Boards is an agency that can help out with that personal branding efforts, bring some clarity and bring some guidance in helping those individuals develop their brands. There's a lot of people out there that I would wish to see more personal branding done. And as you develop your personal brand, good things can come to it. It obviously only builds the exposure of our sports overall and those lifestyle connections. And just like in your professional careers, from a corporate sponsorship perspective, it's also great as well because corporate sponsors know the influence that personal brands can have within their sport and obviously within their brand. I'm not saying this is a roadmap in being an influencer. I think that's part of it. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that's just kind of an extension of developing your personal brand. I think a personal brand is more of you being a notable ambassador and expert within your specific industry, this industry being polo. So again, highly encourage everyone to kind of consider this route. Like I said, we need more of it. And I look forward to seeing more people look into it and researching and developing their own personal brand. And if you are in need of help, Outside the Boards is there to provide that. Enjoy, everyone, and hope you walked away with something. That was a great episode. What is the one thing you learned from today's conversation? If this episode had an impact on you in some way, then I encourage you to visit and subscribe to our website at outsidetheboards.com for more episodes and interviews with incredible guests. Thanks for stopping by, my friends, and hope to see you on the polo field.